Hello, everyone, and welcome to New Consciousness Review. I'm Miriam Knight, and our guest today is Caroline Cory. Caroline is a futurist, visionary, international speaker, author, and the founder of the OMnium Method of Healing. She has just released an extraordinary new film called I Am the Universe, I Am Love. It's a computer-generated 3D animated short film showing the multi-layered interwoven maps of the universe and consciousness. This mesmerizing film lets the viewer experience the creation of the universe from the first expression of the infinite as the source of all creation. It really is quite amazing. And Caroline, I'm just delighted to welcome you.
Thanks so much for having me, Miriam. It's so much fun to be here with you.
Well, Caroline, watching the film, I see that you had a spontaneous opening to source frequency at the age of 5. What did that feel like?
It was an amazing experience. I was just kind of, minding my own business, if you will, as a child. And just all of a sudden, I felt this amazing energy next to me, and I could hear it crystal clear. I just knew that there was a consciousness there, and we kind of exchanged a little bit of a dialogue there about remembering. And our very first connection was about asking for what you want. So at the age of 5, it was a very natural thing. I didn't think it was such a big deal to be communicating with the invisible. It was much later on in life that I realized it was a pretty amazing experience, because this consciousness stayed with me on and off, and it got bigger and bigger. The experiences became much, much more expanded and just very extraordinary. I could see where this consciousness came from, how it was created, how it was connected to the universe, creation, the whole thing. Of course, this is in different and separate experiences on and off until I was an adult. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Well, I'm impressed that you retained this openness, because so many children who have these experiences then communicate to their parents, who very well-meaning, but, turn them off and say, oh, it's just your imagination, dear. So how was it that you were able to retain this?
I did something very smart. I never told anyone. I just thought it was amazing. It was a lot more interesting than what my parents had to say. And the rest of the visible world was doing, that I kind of continued to connect with that amazing experience and consciousness. And I kept it alive. And there was nothing frightening about it. In fact, it felt like home. It was absolutely amazing. And so I think that's the reason why I was able to keep it with me and grow with it. And in fact, at one point, I don't really remember exactly from what age to what age, but sometimes that consciousness would be a little bit less present. And I would miss it. I would miss it terribly. And I would feel that it wasn't normal to not be with it. And so that's why I just kept it alive, because I just never talked about it so much until much later in life.
So I understand that this really was the kind of initiation of your deep connection to spirituality, and you went on to study consciousness, but you ended up as a high-flying creative director and producer in the entertainment industry. How did that happen?
Go figure. Well, actually, we have to back up a little bit, because in college I was still interested about the workings of the mind, and how the human emotions worked and how the human mind functions. So I studied psychology. I actually have a degree in psychology, which I never talk about and I never actually use because my experiences, my direct experiences with consciousness and spirituality were so much bigger. so much more important and real than my work, my studies in college. So I kind of stayed in that whole psychology, spirituality realm for quite some time. But I was also I was very interested in music and the arts as well, because to me it was an expression of your soul. It's like your soul expression here on the earth. So that's why I kind of found myself in terms of work. I found myself gravitating towards the arts, and I started kind of directing shows. It was first for theater, performing arts, and eventually that led me to producing large events and concerts and things like that. So, but, even though that was kind of like my day job, and my real passion was to mix that with my connection to spirit and to consciousness and spirituality, which is what I'm doing now.
When you say mix that, were you talking about just kind of sharing your 24-hour day, or were you actually injecting some of that spiritual consciousness into the work you were doing?
Yeah, I tried to do that. It doesn't really work that well when it's a corporate environment, or when, it feels such like an old paradigm structure, or the way people kind of relate to each other. So it was a bit difficult to inject this, the understanding that I had about spirituality and connection to spirit. So it was a bit of I'm doing my day job as much as possible, with these basic principles that I believed in, but it was difficult to really get everybody to function at that level, Mm-hmm. That's why I eventually left that world, and to really be able to bring spirituality through the arts, which is what I really, really wanted to do, as an expression, through an artistic expression, but also in the way we are creating, the way we are all coming together to create a project, Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Even from a like a business point of view, or logistics, or anything like that, everything had to be based on the same principle of love, truth, honesty. It's very, very difficult to have every aspect of a project be based on these principles, and that's what I'm trying to do as much as possible, but not in the old paradigm world, So thank God I'm where I am today. I'm very happy with it. It's coming out really fantastic. So finally.
Right. Now, you developed the ability to perceive subtle energy. What forms did that take, and how did that inform your understanding of nature?
So that experience that I had at 5 years old, I was perceiving subtle energy. I just didn't know that I was, because, again, as you well know, nobody teaches us these things. It was a spontaneous, direct experience with this consciousness, and the information just transferred organically between me and that consciousness, and back and forth. And so I could hear the communication, I could feel, and I could understand everything about this consciousness without anybody telling me about it. So that, to me, is perceiving subtle energy. So I could also see kind of what it looked like. And so because I didn't kind of try to shut it off, it naturally developed. And the more I allowed it to be, the more I understood more and more how this whole thing worked. And eventually, I really wanted to understand the mechanics. Okay, how is it? Because, of course, later on in life, I realized that not everybody was having these experiences. Not everybody could see subtle energy or perceive subtle energy. Not everybody could have a telepathic communication with an invisible consciousness. To me, it was natural, but when I grew up and I realized that not everybody had kept this ability alive, I wanted to understand the mechanics behind it. how was it, or what was I really doing to get there, to make this spontaneous connection and interaction happen? And so after, of course, a long time of processing the information, studying it carefully, and really kind of going deep into the process part, not just the experience part, I understood that I was doing spontaneously a couple of things. One was raising my vibration to a particular level, and I could see that it had to reach almost 1,000 hertz, meaning the cells of my body had to vibrate at a certain rate. And that was the first thing that I was doing. The second thing is, we have what we call mind channels. It's like you can imagine like a beam of light coming out of your brain, if you will. And so these beams of light are what we call mind channels. And so when they are aligned in a particular way, when my intent was focused and articulated in a particular way, when these three things happen, the vibration, the mind channel, and the intent, there was a spontaneous connection to everything, pretty much, to perceiving cell energy, retrieving information through cell energy, having direct experience with pretty much whatever it is that you want.